Alright, it's official, the 2022 season has come to an end, and with that comes our annual top 50 list of the biggest moments of that season. So this is my top 50 list, this isn't like a top 50 list of the internet, so I picked these moments out myself. If I forgot something, please let me know down in the comments. Alright, I will talk very briefly about every single moment because there are 50. Also good to know this list is in chronological order. So without any further ado, let's jump straight into number 1 and get this list going, shall we? Number 1, Bahrain GP, bad start for Red Bull powertrains. So yeah, the first race of the season, Max, Sergio and Gasly basically all DNF. Not a really good way to start your first race with your own engine, is it? Number 2, Bahrain GP, Kevin Magnussen's astounding P5 finish. His first race back in Haas and he already scores a P5. But yeah, this season is pretty extraordinary for Mr. Kevin Magnussen, apart from all the meat belt flags he got. Number 3, Saudi Arabian GP, Lewis Hamilton get knocked out of Q1. The W13 they had in 2022 was a garbage disposal of a car. At least at the beginning of the season. Late in the season they brought a lot more updates and the car went better and better. But this is not the low point for the W13, that comes later in this list. Number 4, Saudi Arabian GP, Mick Schumacher's horrific crash in Q2. He clipped that wall so incredibly hard. Personally, I'm not a supporter of driving in Jeddah at all. It has nothing to do with political reasons, I just think the circuit itself is just too dangerous for Formula 1 drivers to race at. Number 5, Saudi Arabian GP, Sergio Perez's first pole position. So after 215 attempts, Sergio Perez actually got the first pole position he always dreamt of. And to do that in a track like this, you have to have big... Yeah, good job. Number 6, Australian GP, Sebastian Vettel drives on track on a scooter. So yeah, I believe this actually was free practice 2 or 3, I believe it was. I don't think he crashed, I think the car just had mechanical problems, so he basically parked it to the side. It was a funny moment in Formula 1, we don't see these moments too often, so it's a shame he got fined for that as well, I mean, that's ridiculous. Number 7, Australian GP, Max Verstappen retires once again. I believe the Australian GP was the 3rd or 4th of this season. Seeing him retire for the 2nd time with that engine, I believe we all had an idea in our head, you know, like maybe this year won't be it with this car. The RB18 is not up to par, has too many reliability issues, but that couldn't be more far from the truth. Number 8, Emilia Romagna GP, probably one of the Mercedes W13 worst races of the season. I believe they qualified P11 and P13. In the sprint race, it was a sprint race format, that race. I believe they weren't even able to make it into the top 10. In the main race, it was different, however, because there's a huge contrast there. Lewis Hamilton was lapped by Max Verstappen, whilst George actually finishing P4 with that piece of garbage. Number 9, Emilia Romagna GP, Charles Leclerc spins at Variante Alta. I think this is the first crack of the season Charles Leclerc showed. He basically, I think he wasn't even on the lead, I think he was P3 or something like that, but I think his front wing was damaged by the crash as well. I think he went to the pits, battled back to P6 I believe it was. Result wise it wasn't like a huge error, but it was mentally. Number 10, Miami GP, a new addition to the calendar. What do we think of Miami? Personally, I'm not a huge fan of Miami at all. I mean, we basically race on a very highly adjusted parking lot. I don't know, there's so many beautiful locations to race at and we always build these new street circuits. And there's even more coming as well. Las Vegas is coming too. Number 11, Miami GP, the master and apprentice collide. So Schumacher went for this, let's say, opportunistic overtake on Vettel. But yeah, it was pretty heartbreaking to hear that Vettel radio at the time. Number 12, Spain GP. Max Verstappen's DRS struggles in Spain. Probably one of his all-time highs of raging in Formula 1 was basically this race. I mean, if I had to rate this rage moment, I would probably give it a solid 8. Number 13, Leclerc DNFs, Verstappen wins. That meant he actually led the championship for the very first time that season. So yeah, I believe it was due to a mechanical issue because I believe he just went very peacefully into the pits and basically jumped out. Number 14, Monaco GP. Sergio Perez allegedly crashes out on purpose. However, we did see him punching the gas. I mean, it was pretty odd. I mean, if you compare it to a lap earlier, it wouldn't make sense, but personally I don't think it was on purpose. But remember this moment for later. Number 15, Monaco GP. Heavy rain and failing start system results in a very long delay. Oh man, I remember, I don't know precisely how long it was. I think like an hour and a half. I mean, this season they were so extremely cautious. I mean, put some full wets under there and start racing, you know? Full wet tires this season, absolutely useless. Number 16, Monaco GP, another heavy crash for Schumacher. So yeah, even though the force of impact wasn't extremely huge, we saw the car snapping in half, and that's actually because the 2022 cars are actually designed to do that way, because they learned a lot from Romain Grosjean's crash in Bahrain. Number 17, Monaco GP, Sergio Perez wins his first Monaco Grand Prix. So yeah, I think before this weekend he actually signed a contract deal with Red Bull to stay for that till 2024. 2024, if I'm correct. But yeah, he actually won that race after, and he was pretty happy, team was pretty happy, so good job, Checo. Number 18, Azerbaijan GP, Yuki Tsunoda's duct taped rear wing. I'm not really sure what caused that broken DRS flat, but it was pretty hilarious to see him coming in the pits and all the mechanics just rushing with speed tape or duct tape or whatever it was. It's pretty funny to see such a high technology sport just working with some duct tape. Number 19, Azerbaijan GP. Not a good day for Ferrari related parts. On the top of my memory, Carlos Sainz had a hydraulic issue, Leclerc had an engine issue, and I believe one Haas car. I'm not really sure who it was, to be honest, but I think that was also due to hydraulics. I mean, another hugely sad moment for Charles Leclerc. I mean, he's basically sees his championship slipping out of his fingers. Number 20, Azerbaijan GP, arguably the worst purposing we've seen in the season so far. So bottoming out and purposing was basically a huge deal at the beginning of 2022 season. And after the race, Sir Lewis Hamilton could even get out of his car. We've seen him getting out of the car, you know, with his back pain or whatever. I'm not saying he faked it, but it was pretty funny to see George afterwards just being totally fine while driving the same car. So number 21, Canadian GP, front row start for Fernando Alonso. So this qualifying was actually a wet one. I mean, Max Verstappen was just on another level during that qualifying, but there was another veteran that showed he was also very capable during that quali. His name was Fernando Alonso, superb driving in the rain. I mean, that Alpine shouldn't even be on the front row anyway. Number 22, Canadian GP, great quality result for Haas. So the qualifying session was actually pretty good, but I believe in the race they both DNF'd, so huge contrasting results there. Number 23, British GP, Sainz first pole and first win. I mean, it's always good to see the first maiden win in Formula 1. Verstappen was actually nowhere to be found because he was P7 because of floor-related issue, I believe it was. I think this may be the turnaround for Carlos Sainz. Number 24, British GP, Joao Guan Yu, horrific crash at the start of the race. I stop you right there, I know I don't mispronounce his name, sorry about that. But anyway, I mean, I think we can all be very lucky there that there wasn't any fire involved, because he was stuck in that car for a pretty long time, because he was stuck between the fence and the Techborough barrier, I believe it was, and he basically was shoved in there. Number 25, Austrian GP, Mick Schumacher versus Lewis Hamilton. So yeah, I believe this was around P6, P7, I believe it was. I think this is probably the best race Mick Schumacher raced in Formula 1. I believe Mick even finished P6. So good job. Number 26, Austrian GP, scary heartbreak for Carlos Sainz. We saw the rear of the car basically blowing up. So the Austrian track is actually located in a very beautiful landscape, which has a lot of natural hills and curves and whatever. What was scary is that the SF75 actually caught fire and he couldn't get out because the car was rolling back and back. Luckily, a marshal came on time and had a skid block placed behind his car so he could jump out safely. Number 27, French GP, beginning of the end for Charles Leclerc. I mean, let's face it, Paul Ricard is a horrible track to race at. There's so many run-up areas, there's no possible way to crash, yet Charles Leclerc crashes. I think this was the realization moment of Charles Leclerc of, this will not be my championship year. Number 28, Hungarian GP, Go TV fastest in FP3. I mean, it wasn't the most serious moment in 2020, but it was, you know, a little highlight of his career, let's say. 29, Hungarian GP, George Russell's first pole position. Actually, when he crossed that finish line and got P1, I was like, oh, you know, good job. It didn't occur to me that this was his first pole position. I always think George Russell has more race wins and more pole position than he actually has. Number 30, Hungarian GP, spin and win for Max. I think he was pushing a little bit too hard there on the tires he had on his car at the moment, and still got P1. So yeah, that's what we call a spin win. Number 31, Belgian GP, Verstappen's comeback from P14 on the grid. I believe he switched engines during that race that was out of his pool. Yeah, it basically was awarded a penalty. What the W11 was for Mercedes back in 2020 is the RB18 Red Bull had in 2022. Number 32, Dutch GP, Carlos Sainz pissed up with 3 tires. I mean, we can all be very funny and silly about Ferrari in 2022, but actually if you look at it, it's just sad. It's actually sad. How are your drivers feeling? You know, you screw up time after time after time after time in a team like Ferrari. You can't do that. Number 33, Dutch GP, Max's restart on lap 60. There's basically this rule, right, where you can't overtake someone in front of the timing line. I mean, that timing was just something else, mate. Number 34, Italian GP, Nick de Vries's Formula 1 debut. So yeah, he basically debuted because Alex Albon was ill during that time. Not really sure what he had again. And what made this even more special is that he finished in the points as well, in a Williams. Number 35, Italian GP, boring finish under the safety car. I already know I get a lot of hates for this, but somebody needs to say it. Formula 1 fans can never be pleased. 2021 Abu Dhabi race did not finish on the safety car and everybody wanted it to be. And in the Italian GP of 2022, we did finish under the safety car, and it's also not good. Number 36, Singapore GP. Overall bad race for our 2021 championship contenders. And I don't know what it was. The conditions were proven to be very difficult. They both seemed to be a little bit too eager, basically braking too late and just go on the run-up area and just losing 6 places because you can't re-enter the track safely. Yeah, it was pretty weird to see that from 2 world star drivers. Number 37, Japanese GP. Norris and Max almost collide in quali. This particular moment was a very strange one. So Verstappen basically had this very sudden maneuver to the racing line where Norris basically was approaching and he was like, what the? And he basically went on the gravel. I mean, he lost a lot of time because of that moment, but luckily nobody was hurt. I don't think he received a penalty for that. I'm not really sure why. I mean, it was pretty dangerous. Number 38, Japanese GP. Extremely dangerous racing conditions at the start. I don't think they started this race on full wets because these are proven to be absolutely useless. So I believe they went on the intermediates, but they just couldn't get the water out. So the cars were just aquaplaning all over the place. Another huge letdown was just another crane on the track while the cars were driving the speed that they were. Number 39, Japanese GP. Perez and Leclerc's battle on the last lap. So yeah, Leclerc made a little mistake causing him to cut the corner. He was penalized for that as well. So it was basically Max, Perez and Leclerc, which led to number 40, Japanese GP. Verstappen gets crowned world champion in the most odd way possible. It was such a confusing moment because we were like, do they get half points, do they get full points? And eventually it was decided all of a sudden that they were racing for full points. And nobody knew at the time, and he basically was interviewed, you know, like, how was the race and this and that, and you were leading a good race and whatever. And all of a sudden this guy suddenly says, you're world champion. Everybody looking around like, what the? Number 41, United States Grand Prix. Stroll sends Alonso airborne. Terrible moment for Stroll, he moved way too late. So yeah, luckily he was okay, but it was even more astounding that the car was okay as well, apart from the loose right mirror, I believe it was. So yeah, he was able to continue the race, and I believe he finished P7, right? Number 42, United States Grand Prix. Red Bull wins Constructor Champion for the first time since 2014. I think we also have to give huge credit to Adrian Newey and his team for designing the car that he did. It looks amazing, seemed to be performing amazing, and I think statistically it was the best car that he ever built. And it's nice to see somebody else win after 8 years. Number 43, Mexico GP. Checo gets a podium on home turf. I literally couldn't remember anything special from this race because it was such a bore fest. I mean, it was extremely boring. I almost fell asleep. I didn't because I like Formula 1, but I mean, a casual fan should have fell asleep. And I wouldn't blame them. Number 44, Sao Paulo GP. Kevin Magnussen secures his first pole position. Actually funny to know, his first pole position for himself and for the team of Haas as well. Number 45, Sao Paulo GP. Tension rises between the Alpine teammates. Alonso is pretty well known for his vocal activity on the board radio. This time, he let it all out, man. Number 46, Sao Paulo GP. Verstappen ignores team orders. I think this moment was very odd as well. I mean, it was for like P6 and P7. So the driver constructor and the constructor champion was already in the back. So Max Verstappen basically had nothing to race for. He could just retire the car if he wanted to. But on the other side, Checo could be P6. If you just drove a little faster. I mean, it's that simple. If you want P6, go for P6. There's no handouts in Formula 1, you have to earn it, you know. Number 47, Sao Paulo GP. Russell achieves his first race win in Formula 1. Like in Hungary, I was like, is this his first race win? Always nice to see a new maiden win in Formula 1, and this time it was George Russell. Also got P1 in the sprint race, so it was a very good weekend for him. Number 48, Abu Dhabi GP. Checo and Leclerc battle for P2. Actually, in my opinion, 2021 Abu Dhabi race was boring as hell. Except for the last part, obviously, with the huge controversy part, but that was a lot different with Abu Dhabi in 2020. There was a lot more activity. I think the new regulation with the new cars really succeeded. Number 49, Abu Dhabi GP. The leaving of Vettel, Ricciardo, Schumacher and Latifi. So yeah, a very touching moment for the Vettel fans, seeing him do his donuts for the last time. And the speech he held was actually pretty nice. I mean, personally, I don't think we see any of them back. Maybe Schumacher because of his last name. But for the rest, I think it's done for, to be honest. But yeah, that's just my opinion, but let me know down in the comments what you think. And that brings us to our last moment, number 50, honorable mention. 2023 driver lineup swaps and new faces. And these are the drivers that will show new or either returning drivers. Pierre Gasly will go to Alpine, Oscar Piastri is going to McLaren, Fernando Alonso is moving to Aston Martin, Nico Hülkenberg will go to Haas, Nick de Vries signed with AlphaTauri, and Logan Sargent to Williams. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is our top 50 moments of the 2022 season, which means I can throw this away. So yeah, it was a very fantastic season in my opinion. I enjoyed it. I think the new car or the new regulations with the new cars are actually pretty good. I think they can improve on some things. There's still one or two teams which basically dominate, but I think that will always be the case with Formula One. I do think, however, the 2021 season, in my opinion, was better. So yeah, a little bit different video than, you know, reviewing scale models, but still I really enjoy some content making as well. So yeah, that's basically it for the video. So thank you very much for watching. So consider liking and subscribing to the channel, really keeps me motivated to make more stuff for you guys. Thank you very much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video as well.